went through a tragedy that would have stopped a lot of people cold. And you not only kept going, but you used that as inspiration to help other people. And that's inspiring to me. I admire your intelligence and your compassion. You're saving lives. Probably won't even know all the good you do, but you are doing great good.
In high school, I was always interested in science. Helping others felt right, so going into medicine was an easy decision. I've been in practice 40 years. It's gone by quickly. Esther was the cutest little girl in the world. She was a real homebody when she was young. She loved to read books. One of the things that Esther and I shared was a love of Japan. I grew up there. Esther was born in the States, but she just loved Japan. She loved the culture, she loved the people. We always had a great time when we went there. When Esther entered high school, there was a pretty dramatic change. She went from being someone who loved to read at home to someone who was out all the time. She said she just couldn't wait to go to college and be on her own. I got a phone call somewhere in the middle of her first semester. The resident assistant said she was in the emergency room from drug use. Ultimately, we decided that she'd go into a very intensive outpatient program. When you have a child that is addicted, your role with them changes dramatically, and it took me a while to understand that. I think part of the problem was my expectations that the rehab would just take hold and that the Esther that I knew who had a lot of common sense would be in control. What I learned is that when you really get caught up with drugs, the drugs control you. After Esther passed, there was a long period that was just very dark and difficult. And at some point, you realize you can't just stay in that space. And I had the good fortune of having some friends help me figure out what would be the most productive. After going through some of the possibilities, the one that just felt right was to endow a professorship at an institution that could make a big difference in the long term.
Almost 500,000 Americans have died in the last 15 years from an overdose.
Drug overdoses now kill more people than guns or car accidents.
Every day brings another story about the depth of this country's opioid crisis.
A 10-year-old boy in Florida has become one of the youngest victims of the national opioid epidemic.
I was looking for an institution that has that concentration of firepower that can crack these difficult problems. You need a place where excellent people come together, and ultimately that was why we decided to go with Stanford.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
My comments are informed by my 30 years as an addiction researcher and clinician, and also by my service at ONDCP, where I was honored to serve in the Bush and Obama administrations.
Keith is really one of the most influential people in the country, and I would say in the world, around really innovative, evidence-based approaches to public policy, helping to improve health outcomes for people living with addiction.
The human brain is a terrific gift of evolution, but also has weakness, which is there are a very small number of chemicals in the environment that fool the brain into thinking that they are important for survival. We also know that there are 25 million Americans who have had a terrible substance problem in the past who are now doing very well, people in recovery. So that's also part of the story of addiction, and that's the part that we want to push on here at Stanford. Yes, this is an illness. Yes, it is treatable. Yes, you have a chance to recover.
I'd never thought about supporting someone who was primarily interested in policy, but here's a person that could make a difference in a whole new way that I hadn't thought about.
Keith is the exact right person for this. He brings kind of the best of humanistic values of compassion and kindness, deep regard and respect for others, to this rigorous scientific work that he does. And this is exactly what people living with addiction need. They need our best science, but they need our heart too.
One of the real exciting things that has happened over the last 8 or 10 years is the addiction program at the university has just exploded in quality, both in terms of clinical work and in terms of research work. We have people who are experts in smoking now, people who are experts in alcohol use disorders, people who are experts in opioid use disorders, and it's really very exciting. And the Ting Chair is a huge aid to the program's national standing, and it will help me, frankly, do a lot more of the kind of work that I want to do, particularly at the policy level, to make a national impact on this problem.
I think one of the important criteria when you're looking for a school to make this commitment is that it will be enduring. So the idea that something would be in perpetuity, that the breakthrough might come 100 years from now, that sort of cinched the deal.
Every time Keith speaks somewhere, every time he sends an email, any time that his title is part of his correspondence, Esther will be there. Esther will be his companion in this incredible work. And so I think it is a beautiful way to remember Esther and to have that be lived by Keith and all of the professors who will follow him.
On behalf of the Dean and the Vice Dean, I want to thank you for being here on this special occasion to celebrate George and to acknowledge the achievements of Dr. Keith Humphreys through being named the inaugural Esther Ting Memorial Professor tonight.
I am, in some ways terrified by the prevalence of addiction and the destructiveness it does, but I'm also very optimistic.
My goal in making this gift wasn't to help me feel better, but it definitely has. You know, when you do something that just feels right, it took a while to get here, but this feels just right.
You've trusted me with your child's name, and I think about that all the time. I will live up to it, I promise.